When the law is unjust, people make their own justice. For real though, what is jury nullification? Simplest answer, jury nullification, sometimes referred to as jury equity or perverse verdict, is when a jury decides to deliver a not guilty verdict despite believing that the defendant has violated the law, typically done as a form of protest, perceived injustices in the law, or applications of such. Reasons can include belief in unjust law, that the prosecutor misapplied the law, that the punishment is too severe, or general frustration with the criminal justice system. Nullification is not officially a part of the procedure, but it occurs due to two rules. The first of which being that jurors cannot be punished for the verdict that they make, and the second being that in many jurisdictions, once a defendant is acquitted, they cannot be tried a second time for the same offense. Jurors are instructed to act solely as finders of fact and not question the law itself. This instruction is criticized by those who support jury nullification. An example of the verdict's usage was when jurors refused to convict any persons accused of violating the Fugitive Slave Act, which would return an enslaved person who'd escaped to the state in which they'd fled. The use of this verdict is a source of constant debate. While some believe it maintains the last resort or safeguard against wrongful imprisonment, others believe it is a violation of the right to a jury trial and that it undermines the law. There are people who fear that the use of nullification could be used to permit violence toward those considered socially subordinate. Some issues regarding the topic include whether juries can or should be instructed or informed of their ability to nullify, whether a judge is allowed to remove jurors for a cause if they refuse to apply the law as instructed, whether a judge should be allowed to punish a juror for practicing jury nullification, and whether all legal arguments except on motions in limine, a motion discussed outside the presence of the jury to request that certain testimony be excluded, should be made in the presence of the jury. Wikipedia Contributors 2019. Understanding this topic with all of the legal jargon is a difficult ask, which I recognize, considering that 21% of US adults lack basic prose literacy, the knowledge and skills to search, comprehend, and use continuous text effectively in everyday life. I don't expect this to be an easy conversation. Forms such as editorials, news stories, and instructional materials, which are a crucial component to functional literacy, are outside of the grasp of nearly 36 million adults. TAN 2026. But what do those statistics really mean? It means many adults can't read a job application, legal papers, navigate a computer to complete tasks, etc. And it means people are more often swayed by emotion than by fact. But the main reason I'm talking about this topic isn't solely to bring awareness to the tools that remain in the hands of the proletariat as they navigate their way through systems that are increasingly designed for their failure. That's just a bonus. The real reason I'm here with this topic is a philosophical one. How do we know things to be true, and if we can't, then how can we act as seekers of justice? Theories of truth. Truth is a central subject in philosophy. What this means is that it's a long debated topic, and there's tons of theories on ways we can really know something. The first example to be found is the identity theory, which states that there is no difference between truth and the reality to which it is supposed to correspond. Moore, 1902, page 21. Eventually, the identity theory was rejected for the correspondence theory because we came to realize that there is doubt in such a thing as false prepositions, eventually concluding that there is no such thing as prepositions at all. The correspondence theory states that what we believe or say is true if and only if it corresponds to the way things are, meaning basically that feeling corresponds to a fact. Opposing the correspondence theory is the coherence theory, which in a sense states that what is true is the whole complete truth. Individual judgments are not the whole complete truth and therefore only true to a degree. There are also pragmatist theories like that of Peirce, truth is the end of inquiry, and that of Peirce and James, truth is satisfactory to believe. This also means that true beliefs are guaranteed not to conflict with subsequent experience. This also tells us that true beliefs will remain when finished with facing a prolonged inquiry. I've spoken on this before with the remarks on how religion can or cannot hold up to scrutiny. If your beliefs are found in something real, then questioning your faith tends to strengthen it rather than dismantle it. Peirce doesn't reject correspondence theory entirely, but rather states that it provides a non physical or not direct to the real definition of truth because it is cut off from practical matters like experience, belief, and doubt. Landsberg, 2025. There's a lot more to be found in that article that I used as my primary source in this previous section, but I will cut down the historical side and go into my own discussion of the topic. I find more often that there is some version of truth, or essentially what I've described as some value, something to be learned in each writing. Even if the only value you gain is an understanding of the author, that is a piece to behold relative to their time. That stands true for me with each piece of philosophy I have described. With the identity theory, I find that there's a complex understanding of no difference between truth and reality. This is an approach direct to the facts, ignoring outside influence and missing some of the human feel that is individual or perceived reality. Still, if your aim is to be completely strict with the laws without deviation, this theory may suit you. Correspondence gets a little closer to the cohesion of both objective and subjective reality, but misses some aspects just slightly. Coherence is again very much aligned with that objective reality, straight facts, no deviation sort of thing. I appreciate that it provides that individual perspective does hold some truth, but that it's not absolute truth. The pragmatic approach to truth is probably what I'd consider the most inclusive. It recognizes that subjective reality is a key component to developing our own truths and our own realities, but that if those beliefs don't hold up to questioning, that they are not rooted in truth. What this means to me. The issue with understanding truth is that there are really two versions of existence. One version of reality exists independently from perception and doesn't vary from person to person. Things like the law of gravity, the boiling point of water at sea level, the date you were born, 2 plus 2 equals 4, etc., are objective reality and do not change. Emotional responses to a particular event, preferences for food items, or cultural beliefs about societal norms are subjective and change from person to person. Considering both of these realities and finding the way to unite them amicably, definition in a friendly and peaceable manner, is the route to get closest to the complete truth. But how can we act as seekers of justice? Here's the real conversation. I think the seeking part is what matters most. I think we often cannot accurately define the entirety of the truth, especially surrounding brief moments. I think because of all this, we cannot determine who lives or dies. For pedophiles, I prefer either or both chemical and surgical castration. I think they should also have to pay for the therapy and any costs regarding the trauma they inflicted. I cannot accurately prove that it is the pedophile's fault that their mind became or was wired that way, especially because a lot of times it stems from repeated sexual abuse as a child, but I believe you can stop them from harming people in the future while not determining who lives or dies. For murderers and abusers, I think life in prison offers time for them to think about what they've done, and if they choose to take their own life, then that's completely within their own hands to do so. I think for fraud that they should be indentured servants and must pay back every cent that they scammed away. If it takes their entire life to make amends to the people that they harmed, that should be a just consequence to the lives they ruined. A lot of the issues currently pertaining to our justice system stem from the fact that money really does allow people to get away with anything. If a rich person gets a speeding ticket adjusted for their wage, it makes them less likely to speed than the same fine across all offenders. Thought experiment. If we continue to focus on finding the truth, what's fair, and our moral responsibility as human beings, we can seek justice. If we allow revision to our understanding and try to find what is fair and right, we can negate the need for runaround solutions. I don't think the answers are ever meant to be simple, even the ideas I come up with have flaws. That's why we need each other's version of truth to understand our own ideas better. When we make irreversible, definition not able to be undone or altered, decisions based on one chunk of the truth rather than the entirety of it, which most often isn't something we can see, we end up failing a lot more people. The idea of a criminal justice system is important. We need that sector to investigate and carry out sentences to protect public safety and individual rights. That doesn't mean there aren't any flaws. It isn't a perfect world. In fact, a perfect world would be incredibly boring, but if we don't at least try to make it better one piece at a time, then what's the point? Thank you for being here. If you're a fan of investigative journalism and philosophy, subscribe for free today. If you'd like to further support my efforts, you can subscribe to my Patreon, which will be linked down below. Only occasional posts are for purchase, everything else is free and comes 2 days earlier on average, which also helps me cover research materials, i.e., purchasing text, as well as my time and effort in development. Along with that, it supports my real life effort in making education free and widespread. I thank you for your support no matter the form. I hope to see you guys in the next video. Bye!